Joining me now is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, who's also a pilot in the Air National Guard. Good to see you here, Congressman.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
I understand you had a big meeting yesterday with the President's National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster. How'd that go?
Look, it was good. I'll tell you what makes me comfortable is when I see the President and his team in the Situation Room. The President wasn't there yesterday, but HR was. And I see how they have a grip, not just on the Iran issue, but on the broader issues of the world. Under the prior administration, really all they wanted to do was get some kind of a deal with Iran on nuclear weapons and call it a day. And we got that some kind of a deal. And then over the period of time, we've seen Iran grow in influence. They're in Syria. They're basically supplying Hezbollah. They're putting big threats against Israel. And they're meddling in Iraq and everywhere else in the Middle East because of this money from the deal. So the administration has a comprehensive plan, of which the JCPOA, the Iran deal, is a part of it. But I think there's going to be a broader confrontation against this, this terrible regime.
So when the President called it the calm before the storm, what did he mean by that?
Well, only the President knows what he meant by that. I think, look, there's a sense of unpredictability with President Trump, which I think works in his favor. So, you know, our enemies or adversaries don't necessarily know what his next action would be, and there's some huge benefit in that as they look and say, okay, well, what's he going to do to us next? Because the thing we have to remember as Americans is we have a ton of power and a ton of ability to do things, and so bringing our allies along with us, for instance, in confronting Iran or in pushing back against Iran and Syria, or in eventually reimposing sanctions because Iran is not living by the spirit of this deal, then I think the calm is where we are now. The storm is finally confronting Iran, not necessarily militarily, but in a whole host of other areas.
Defense Secretary Mattis seems to disagree with walking away from this deal. It says stay in it for now. It is in the best interest of the national security of this country. Contradicting the President, where does the President go with this?
I don't know if it's necessarily a contradiction, because a decertifying of the Iran deal does not necessarily mean we're tearing it up and leaving. Part of me would love to just tear up this deal and leave the deal altogether, but decertification is a process where now Congress comes in with the administration and figures out how to possibly bring our allies along on reimposing sanctions in areas like missile development as well, which was not included under this deal. So I don't know if there's disagreement, and if there is disagreement, I think it's healthy disagreement within an administration, because frankly, I don't want people, and I don't think the President wants people in his administration, they're going to just tell him what he's already decided. He wants, in essence, a team of rivals that are offering competing views, and I'll tell you, H.R. McMaster and Mattis and Secretary Tillerson, they're all very smart people on these issues and bring their own strengths.
But I mean, he did hint. He said he reiterated his belief that Tehran is not living up to the spirit of the deal. The President leaving off that we will be hearing from him shortly on Iran, with that deadline coming up. That being said, Congressman, I want to get what's going on here with the you're one of 3 House Republicans that you have sent a letter to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms asking to reevaluate these bump stocks, or these devices that convert the semi-automatic weapons to nearly machine gun status. You want to look into this further. Why?
So I'm a huge Second Amendment advocate. I'm a gun owner, and I love shooting guns. I've shot the bump stock before. What my fear is, 3 days ago, nobody knew what this was. Today, everybody knows what this is. When I shot it before, I was actually surprised to find out it was technically legal by ATF. I want the ATF to reevaluate this, which they did under the Obama administration and found it technically compliant, because if the ATF can handle this, then all the new devices that come to the commercial shelf, the ATF can determine if it lives within the spirit of the ban on automatic weapons. The problem with jumping to legislation, like some of my colleagues have done, is if we ban these certain devices and then somebody creates something new that gets around the law, are we going to have to do another law? The best place is in the ATF. If the ATF can't rule to say that these are wrong, then we can look at a legislative fix for it.
And other Republicans on board, we've heard from Senator John Cornyn of Texas saying that's something that we want to look at, open to some sort of change. Do you worry that this is either a slippery slope as far as further gun legislation that many Democrats are calling? Or, Congressman, do you have a fear that this gets away from the real conversation and this absolutely evil act that we saw play out in Las Vegas Sunday night?
Yeah, both are a fear. I think it's important to note that evil you can't screen evil until it commits evil acts, right? You also have to understand that Democrats don't want to just ban bump stocks, they want to ban guns in many cases, and that's a reality. And so we have to block against that slippery slope. But when you look at something like a bump stock and you look at the law that everybody agrees on banning fully automatic weapons, this is a workaround to the spirit of that law. And I think we have to reasonably say, okay, this is something we can address. But you already see it in the left because they've said that going to the ATF isn't enough. We need legislation. And so continue to watch that. But we have to be reasonable on this, which I think is the right thing to do.
Before we let you go, have you heard back anything from the ATF since you sent that letter?
Not yet, and hopefully we will on an expedited basis.
All right, Congressman, thanks for